Right, so I think we need to talk about that ending of Stargirl Season 3, Episode 10. This was Episode 10, wasn't it? But either way, that ending, we've actually theorized about that before, but I'm not blowing smoke because we did have quite a few other, ideas as to who that killer could be. We were on the ball of, okay, clearly, the Ultra Humanite does not fit into that little robe that person was wearing. I remember various subscribers, such as yourself, said, what if Icicle is still alive? And if you go back a couple of videos ago, I thought, well, technically that could be possible, but I didn't hold any major stock in that. So wow, with that ending, we've got quite a bit to talk about, quite a bit of theories. As usual, guys, if you stick around to the end of the video, I do a little bit of a promo breakdown because, it's always fun getting into the preview of next episode. So thanks for clicking on this video. Thanks for liking. That's if you did like it, I hope you did. But let's get right into the beginning of this. Now, I will say Stargirl can be fairly predictable at times, but at other times, such as later on in this episode, there's a certain storyline that you may remember me talking about for quite some time now with regards to Cameron that pleasantly surprised me. But at the very beginning, picking up with Paula and the Crocs just living the happy life, the little teaser of the manhole cover, I did think to myself, I guess around 20 seconds into this episode, I think they're gonna die. And lo and behold, they did. I would love to know if you got that intuitive feeling that they might meet their end, because I was thinking we haven't had any major deaths this season other than the gambler. I guess you would regard the Crocs as major characters because the show has made them to be so. But yeah, with this happy-go-lucky beginning, I was like, yeah, they're gonna bite the dust. What I didn't expect is how impactful that moment would be. Because don't get me wrong, I like the Crocs. I really like Crusher. I like what they've done with Paula. Barbara, I don't really talk about it a lot in reviews because there's not so much to break down there. But man, yeah, I need to stop getting ahead of myself. But that ending impacted me more than what I thought it would. And so with Mike and Jakeem, they wish for a telephone box. They don't have the money for the telephone box. This is when, well, a little bit later on, but I want to keep it cohesive here, they get caught in the trap, and it's from none other than Cindy. She's been missing a little bit recently. It's good to see Cindy's face again. They say that they found this giant, big-ass gorilla, and she says that's who the trap was for, and she wants to basically clear her name because it's most likely the Ultra-Humanite who has been killing, or at least killed, the gambler, which, could be true, even though we know Icicle is in the mix and basically helming all of this. Ultra-Humanite, as we find out later, is a bit of a distraction. He is probably used for a bit of muscle, so as Starman said later, he probably got that sucker punch from him. But that's more or less all we saw of Cindy. I'm hoping we'll see a bit more of her. I guess we will, especially since, we've only got 13 episodes this season, so there's only a couple more in this series finale ramp up now. Then at Courtney's house, everyone's wondering if the Marquettes are involved with Jakeem and Mike's disappearance, and they're talking about how Beth tracked the signal from their home, but Starman for once in this moment was just like, actually I don't really think that is the case, because after all, it's been a fabrication before, and it's most likely another fabrication because somebody was trying to distract them, which as we know is low-key true, and that was Icicle. Now after the hospital scene with Grandmama Icicle, we have Pat and Starman go to the Marquette's household, which I do agree with Starman. Pretty stupid decision to not bring the staff. I get it. Maybe it's a show of just not being hostile, but at the same time it's self-defense, because when they get into that conversation with the grandpapa Icicle, and he's the one who's actually the calm one out of him and the grandma, he does warn them like, you both should leave before my wife comes home and kills you. And I was just thinking, she could have been there. And if she came home with how impulsive she is, I mean, after all, she tried to kill freaking Barbara immediately after Pat and Starman left. I just kept thinking she could have walked in from behind sneakily and just, sent out an Icicle, but luckily that didn't happen. We got into a bit of the history as to what happened with their family, how they've been hunted and burned like witches. This is kind of a little bit of a callback to the book that Grandmama Icicle was reading, where we saw that person burning on the pyre. Basically, it's her family history. We have Paula try and teach Barbara some target practice, which now looking back on it is pretty sad because Paula's dead, and, I guess Barbara might be influenced by this to try and stop Jordan. It all makes me think, who is going to be the one to really stop Jordan, Marquette, and Icicle? Getting ahead of myself again. I do have a theory for this at the end of this video, so stay tuned for that. But I do wonder if Barbara's just going to try and attack him at one point. I'll probably make a deliberate choice of that. Maybe a crossbow bolt that could be used in quite an integral moment. Meanwhile, with Rick this episode, very battered and bruised. He's being checked over by Beth's mum, and essentially he is in junkie mode now. We were talking about roid rage mode, but Beth challenged challenged him to take the hourglass off for just 10 minutes, and he couldn't do it, walked right up to her. This is a bit cheesy, but at the same time, if he's in junkie mode, then I guess, you know, you're attacking the junkies. One thing that only matters to them is like, do not tell me, or don't ever tell me what to do. And even when as he's walking away, he's got a little bit of a twitch going on there. So it's going to be interesting to see how he's going to get out of this, because if he is really hooked on it, I hope they don't do a thing where he just stops it cold turkey. It is doable, but I assume if they're drawing parallels to a drug addiction here, it's going to be a bit harder for Rick to let go. So I am very intrigued for where things are going to go in the final few episodes for Rick and this whole hourglass thing. So this is when we go to the pit stop with Mike and Jakeem, and this happened just like how I said it would. Again, not blowing smoke. This was just, I felt like when we saw the Ultra Humanite at the end of last episode, that when we saw Pat and Starman learn about it, I said I can imagine Sylvester saying something like, right, Pat, and then they would go on to explain maybe a JSA history to it, and lo and behold, it's kind of true. They knew exactly what Mike and Jakeem were on about and how dangerous, very dangerous, he would be to the JSA. And as I said, this is very, very predictable, and I'm sure most of you thought this anyway, that the reason why he would get on board is because of something that happened in the JSA's past. That turned out to be true as well, because at the meeting at Courtney's home, Pat and Starman essentially break down towards the end of the episode who the Ultra Humanite is. And I roughly described who he was at the end of last episode, if you remember me saying. He was like a very intelligent scientist who body hopped, kind of like the Thinker, and he did it to the point of body hopping into Dolores Winters, an actress of whom actually went on to win an Oscar. But by that point of her winning that Oscar, it turned out that it was the Ultra Humanite already inhabiting her mind with his brain, so I guess he's a half-decent actor. But that's how he managed to kind of escape the JSA's sights, because they weren't truly aware that's who he had body hopped into. Up until the point of when they did realize it, they were wondering if when they had first run into him, if that was even his original body. But at some point, the JSA found out the truth. I guess they went to somewhat confront Dolores Winters, really the Ultra Humanite, and that's when the Ultra Humanite was like, right, Dragon King, I've been found out. We need to get a big ass body, such as a gorilla, so I'm strong enough to stop the JSA. So if you think about it, the Ultra Humanite's revenge plan against the JSA is really just kind of out of the fact that he got exposed as being Dolores Winters and wants revenge for that. Because Sylvester said in reply to what does he want, you know, it's like, besides revenge against the JSA, anyone's guess, that does leave room for some unknown reason as well. But if you do boil it down to something, it's because he was enjoying his life as an Oscar winner, Dolores Winters, got exposed by the JSA, which led him to then get into the gorilla body. So it's just kind of funny that for now, the revenge plan is that, hey, you outed me in my Oscar days when I was body hopped into Dolores Winters, and I'm gonna get you now, and I've signed up to Icicle's cause and his revenge plan, and I am voluntarily his muscle. But let's rewind a little bit. Before we got to that meeting in the house, we had that moment with Cameron and Courtney, and thank you, Stargirl writers. Like, seriously, I'm very grateful for this, because the one thing I didn't want to see is Cameron roid rage out himself over finding out the truth. And in this moment with Courtney, he was fairly calm and composed. They even wrote in, he's come to learn that he wasn't like a great guy. Now, I do wonder, and I feel like they've glossed over a teeny tiny bit. After Courtney said he did bad things, Cameron, he killed people to get what he wanted and is about to kill so many more. He says that he's learning, that I know he wasn't a good guy all the time, but ultimately, you know, and I do understand this, he was my dad. So the glossing over bit, I mean, is that he's learning. So they insinuate that, I guess now he's found out the truth. I suppose that his grandparents have filled him in on a few things, or maybe he's looked into it himself. But what I'm happy about ultimately is that Cameron has learned the facts now, and he acknowledges that he's done some bad things. But regardless, obviously the pain for him is a bit overwhelming. And I felt like the dialogue in this scene was pretty good, because the way they handled his reaction is something that I was hoping to be the case. I didn't want him, as I said, to roid rage out, just not listen to anything, even though arguably that would be an understandable lens to put on this character this season. Just in reaction to learning the person he's loved had something to do with it. Instead, he's just like, did you have to kill him to stop him? Did you have to take him away from me forever? He was just trying to understand. And I felt like Hunter Sanzone, if that's how you say the actor's name, did a very good job here. Again, I'm sure many of you have heard me say all season long, somewhat hammer it in. I don't want to see him just flip out in a very cliche, tropey way. Instead, they really kind of humanized this, allowed him to have a conversation, allowed him to explore his feelings in that conversation with Courtney, and then it got up until that point of where Courtney said, after he demanded to know who did it, I'm pretty sure any of us would want to know the same thing, and she said it was her. And he obviously can't bring himself to kill Courtney, even if she said Mike, which would have never have happened, but let's hypothetically say she did. I think he would have gone to Mike to talk to him. The show probably would have framed it in a way that he would want to kill him, and this could still happen, obviously, but I don't think he would follow through. He would just still be very devastated. But because it's Courtney, obviously he still doesn't want to kill her, so they've kind of addressed there and then that he now knows his father's killer, technically, in his mind, and he's letting her go, albeit he said, I never want to see you again. But the thing is, now that Icicle is alive, I do wonder what will happen with this, because it's not like he died when Mike caused that accident, even though I argue that wasn't an accident. I mean, just look at it, you would have seen that, but either way, does it matter that Mike ran him over? If that truth comes out to Cameron that it wasn't really Courtney, because he's alive. He's kind of good, albeit he seems to have some health concerns, which we'll get into in a little bit. I suppose the whole plot point of this, to put the blame on Courtney, is not only for her to protect Mike, obviously, but even though Icicle is alive, Cameron, who loves her, has to deal with the fact that she would have made this decision to kill his father, even if it's an accident. I think that's what they want to go forward with, to kind of add that fracture to their relationship. But in other news, we had Paula and Crusher go to the Marquettes, and I have to admit, this is when, given that I had the feeling that they were going to die right from the get-go of the episode, I thought this is when it was going to happen. Even though it felt like they were getting somewhere, they were reiterating Courtney's, whimsical, like, we have to change and forgive everyone kind of thing. I get it. I did think that even though it looked like Grandmama Icicle was considering it, I thought she was just going to go, and they were going to do a twist similar to the painter teacher. I thought she was going to send 2 Icicles there and then. But I'm glad they didn't do that, obviously, given how good the ending was for them through Icicle himself murdering them. What makes it so much more interesting is, we had that scene where Grandmama Icicle was just absolutely distraught, saying she misses her son, and it did seem indeed that she was considering his forgiveness, not exactly letting it go, but moving on. We had Grandpapa Icicle saying, as hard as it is, I can forgive them, or at least I have to, kind of thing. And now that, he's alive. So are they going to subscribe to their son's plan for revenge? That's going to be an interesting thing to think about, because he's clearly wanting to kill everyone. So is Grandmama Icicle going to encourage that? What's this going to be like for Grandpapa Icicle? I realize how ridiculous it is that I say these nicknames. But seriously, is he going to try and talk his son out of it? Because he did say to Cameron, obviously, that, your father's grief, mind you, is the thing that destroyed him. Don't let it destroy you. His grief for his father at that fight scene at the end of last episode. And now it's going to kind of be happening again. So I wonder how on board Grandpapa Icicle is going to be. Either way, though, back to that meeting at the end of the episode, Courtney's just like, this is it. This is our next Eclipso. Everyone come in for a group hug. Like, that's essentially what this speech was. But at the same time, they think that he's been the one watching them. Now, end of the episode. This is when we get Crusher and Paula very, very happy that Artemis has gotten to Nebraska, a college, I believe, and, they're going to celebrate, but they start to see flyers for his gym scattered everywhere, like deliberately luring them to the CCTV little manhole cave, if you will. And this is when Crusher gets stabbed by an icicle. You can instantly tell, it's like, okay, he's starting to get frozen. And this is when the road figure pulls off the mask, and it's none other than Jordan Marquette. And, people ever since season 1 have been saying, well, he could technically, in all of those little icicles, bring himself back together, Terminator style, and materialize himself again, which, does beg the question, if that is the case, which I guess it is, does that mean he's invulnerable? Because even if you think of, I guess, gathering all the ice and melting it, or evaporating it, he could just come out of the water vapor in the air and still just come back together. Like, can Icicle ever die? And this is when they reach out their hands and they say they love each other. There is almost like an element of cheese to this, but I feel like the way they actually have done Crusher and Paula, even though for some, I do understand it's a bit of like a too much of a 180 turn with their villainy to frenemies, I guess you can say, but with the way they've handled it, with the way we've been presented it this long now, it was a sad ending. And the one thing that rings true with what Stargirl is that these two really cared about their family. They really cared about Artemis. They slammed that in right before they died with her going to college, before that meeting with the grandparents talking about a better future for their kids, and then this happened, so it was very sad. And then Jordan absolutely obliterates their bodies. Now, it makes sense why he's been hidden this whole time, in order to surprise kill them. You know, if you just announce yourself saying, hey bitches, you didn't kill me, then you're gonna have a harder job killing Starman, Pac, Stargirl, everyone, right? So come back hidden, get the Ultra Humanite in there for some backup, of whom already has a grudge against the JSA, which just makes things easier for Icicle, and it offers a bit of a distraction as well. So it's quite a solid plan from Icicle, to be honest, lurking in the shadows there, and just wanting to make sure his revenge and the way he executes it, both figuratively and literally, is just precise. But it appears that now he is ready to reveal himself, given the promo of the next episode, of which we're about to get into. But what's with the mask, though? Now, you may be wondering that, because when he first took it off, he is clearly in some kind of, I guess, subtle pain there. He does have this somewhat labored breathing after taking it off. Sure, some people would be like, come on, Boba, he just took a mask off, so he's breathing. But no, they're clearly trying to get across that he's wearing it to, I guess, somewhat, I don't know, maintain some kind of healing after he was absolutely obliterated into literal ice. So I guess ever since he's come back, it's a bit harder for him to function in some way or another. I'm sure we'll get some clarity on this. And let's get into that promo as well for the next episode, because it gives a little bit more of an insight here. So the first shot is as Icicle takes off his glove. All of his fingers aren't back. He's got like the first three, but his last two, ring finger and his little pinky, are little knives or icicles, if you will. So I'm guessing he can't really fully bring himself back, or maybe that's a deliberate choice, but again, it seems to show he's in a little bit of discomfort here. What I'm really happy about as well is that they're not going to drag this out. I suppose they can't, because they've only got 3 more episodes now, but what I mean is Courtney says Icicle's back, so again, not dragging it out, coming right into it. And so that's when we see Jordan, Marquette, and Icicle himself go to his family home, and Cameron is like, Dad? So I do have a little bit of a theory here that, you know, Cameron, as he's already said himself to Courtney this episode, was learning that he wasn't all that great, right? But it was still his dad. Now he's going to get his dad back. He's going to be very happy that he's not actually dead. But now he's going to get to see what Jordan actually is like. And quite possibly a far worse version of him than he's ever been before, because he almost died. Now he's killing everyone. Everyone. And one of them is someone that Cameron loves. So my theory is, this may be a bit too tropey, but what if Cameron is forced to kill his father to stop him from killing Courtney? Because Cameron isn't his father. That's something they've been slamming down again and again from lines between Courtney to Yolanda to Rick. And I feel like they're actually going to really bring that to fruition in a pivotal scene, I guess, in the finale, where Cameron, no matter how much he loves his dad, won't let him do something that, despite it being out of revenge or whatever, Cameron's like, please don't kill Courtney. He's about to do it anyway, and maybe he sends out an icicle. Maybe they won't do that. I'm not saying that's exactly how it's going to go down, but I feel like Cameron is going to feel so conflicted at some point in the next few episodes, being mega happy he's back, but also being better than his father, and won't let him go through with doing something that he disagrees with and might possibly be forced to stop him from doing it. And I wonder if that will mean him offing his own dad. I don't know, would love your theories there. Then lastly, we have Icicle going back to his work. Barbara's there, that's going to be interesting. He says he's a changed man. And then we see Starman very fueled with rage, saying he's hunting Icicle at the first chance he gets. I don't blame him, because Icicle along with Brainwave were the 2 top dogs. Icicle, as we know, at the very top of whom killed the JSA. So this is Starman's prime opportunity to get revenge himself. So I wonder how crazy that's gonna get. We do see after this that Starman is seemingly blowing up that farm that the Ultra Humanite was at. As we know, Sylvester has got mega temper issues. So yeah, I do wonder what's gonna happen there. Is Sylvester gonna die out of impulsiveness going up against Icicle? Maybe it won't be Cameron who finally does something, even though I do think that he's gonna have something to do with stopping his father. Maybe it might be a thing where Starman dies. It's gonna be kind of those like sad but complete endings, but he sacrificed himself to stop the big bad villain, and obviously that being Jordan. But that more or less sums up the promo, sums up the episode. I really enjoyed this episode. I feel like Stargirl is going very strong at the minute, and this is the last season. So we've got only 3 more episodes left, and it feels like they're going to be really awesome now that we've got a really good villain back. Because I always say season 1 was better than season 2 because I really enjoyed Henry, you know, Brainwave Jr. Brainwave was really cool. I just felt like it was so strong, especially with Jordan Marquette as well. All of that was just so fascinating to watch that unfold. Not that season 2 was bad, I'm just saying that season 1 had a proper like full stocked fridge of stuff that they wanted to sling your way. And now that they're like bringing back in the OG Icicle in the last 3 episodes, man, I feel like that's going to really ramp up for a very strong series ending to Stargirl. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. I would love to know your theories. What do you think this means for Cameron? Comment on what I said earlier about, do you think he's going to be forced to do something that will stop his dad because he's not his father's son? As always, everyone, links are in the top pinned comment or in the description down below. Twitter, Instagram, other places to support me. You can get yourself a Boba cap or a Boba beanie if you want to on my Teespring store. But thanks for watching. Thanks for liking. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see all you members of the JSA in that next video. Goodbye.